I think the U.S. is in an impossible fiscal situation. $2 trillion deficits every year is a huge risk, and that's going to get worse as people lose confidence in fiat currencies. And not just people, but governments around the world, corporations around the world. They want an alternative. Historically, that money has gone into gold, but increasingly, I think it goes into Bitcoin.
Hey folks, Flo here with Blockchain North here at Consensus 2025. Here with Matt Hougan, who I follow quite assiduously, I have to say, on MSNBC, Bloomberg, etc. You're kind of everywhere.
I'm all over the place. Yeah, no, it's great to be here.
And you're now in Canada.
That's right, absolutely.
So you're one of the few people who give price predictions in crypto, so I cannot not ask you, where will Bitcoin be at the end of 2025 and 2026?
Yeah, well, look, I think Bitcoin's going to end this year above 200,000 US. When I look at the market, there's just too much structural demand from ETFs and companies and governments versus the amount of new supply coming on chain. I don't see what's going to stop that. There's a fundamental demand-supply mismatch. I think we'll go higher in 2026. I'm optimistic on 2026 as well, but I think this year is going to be a big run-up as institutions come into the space in a big way.
What could prove you wrong this year?
Well, I think if we have negative political developments in Washington, if we don't get the sort of the market structure and stablecoin regulations that we hope in DC, I think that would be a negative. I think a negative macro shock could make me uncomfortable, but the fundamentals are just really good. The Bitcoin network only produces 165,000 Bitcoin. Last year, ETFs bought 500,000, companies bought 300,000. This year, I think they'll buy more. That's just more demand than there is supply. I think the price has to go up.
Does that mean that now that we already have a Bitcoin and an Ethereum ETF, but now that Solana is coming online, and I think as XRP might be too, that those will also see a lot of growth?
I think they'll see less growth than the Bitcoin ETF. There's more interest, right? The Bitcoin story is so good right now, right? There's so much concern about fiat currencies. There's so much concern about debt and debasement. The monetary order of the world is shifting. I think for this year, the primary focus is on Bitcoin specifically, but I think there's some strong fundamental growth in these other networks as well. They may be value plays for longer term investors.
So you mentioned people's concern with currencies. Does that include the US dollar?
Of course. Yeah, of course. The US has $37 trillion of debt. We're running $2 trillion deficits. That can't go on forever. I think the dollar has been the world's reserve currency for the last 50 years. I think it has a long way to go in that role, but I think its strength in that role is shrinking. I think people are looking for alternatives. That's why you see central bank buying of gold. I think that's why you're going to see central bank buying of Bitcoin as well. I do think the world is changing.
I thought the debt was wiped out by Elon Musk in 3 months.
That's what he said. We're still waiting. We'll see if he gets to it. Look, I think the U.S. is in an impossible fiscal situation. $2 trillion deficits every year is a huge risk, and that's going to get worse as people age and retirement benefits sort of make it impossible to escape. So yeah, I'm not optimistic long term on the dollar.
Can you explain in layman's terms why Bitcoin is somehow a silver bullet?
I don't think it's a silver bullet, but I think as people lose confidence in fiat currencies, and not just people, but governments around the world, corporations around the world, they want an alternative. Historically, that money has gone into gold, but increasingly, I think it goes into Bitcoin. The world is increasingly digital. They want a digital version of every physical good. Bitcoin is digital gold, and I think that's soaking up some of the demand. If you think the dollar is going to lose value faster than it has, and it's been losing half its value every 20 years for the last 100 years.
Yeah, 99% since the Fed was created.
That's exactly right, but if that accelerates, then you want an alternative. If you're a corporation, corporations are sitting on $6 trillion of cash. That's generating negative real yields in the treasury market. They don't want to do that. They want an alternative. I think more and more people are looking at Bitcoin as that alternative.
Will Bitcoin ever replace the US dollar?
No, I don't think so. Look, I'm an American. I love the US dollar. It works well. It's still the cleanest fiat currency in the world amongst a bunch of bad choices. But I think Bitcoin will edge in. I think we're moving into a world with multiple reserve currencies. I think Bitcoin will have a seat at the table. I think the dollar will still play a dominant role in global commerce for as far as I can see. But Bitcoin's share is going from zero to something, and that makes it a very attractive investment.
Do you have any comments on the relationship between Canada and the US right now?
I wish it were better. I wish it were better. You're our neighbor, you're our friend. The acrimony that we've injected into that relationship over the last 6 months is really unfortunate. I'm hopeful that we can peel back and get along like we used to.
So are we. Thank you very much, Matt.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure chatting with you.